Hi, my name is Noemi Greyzdorf. I'm a VP of Operations in Interlock, and I would like to take you through sort of what is Interlock's market opportunity. So first, um, if you haven't seen the demo, please do. For those of you who have, I want to articulate one thing about Interlock is Interlock has two separate offerings as part of its portfolio. One is what we call DF Classic, and this is a fully managed data migration service where we have our migration engineer comes in and does everything from beginning to end. You don't have to think of nothing. The second is we have developed DataForge software, and this software is designed to do data migrations and automate data migration, enabling any professional services person or a migration engineer to leverage the software to expedite the action of data migration. It is licensable. It is, like I said, self-service. And it does not require the engagement of Interlock's professional services engineers to complete the job. And we have those relationships currently in the marketplace.
For that licensing, is it based on just data transfer entirely, or is there an element to the scale out
Nope,
that
it's
plays into that?
solely based on how much data you got to move. Because, in the end, it's not really about how big the infrastructure that's moving the data. It's really about how much data can I move, and our value prop is that we can move it pretty quickly, right? Because that's what you want to really accomplish. So in going to market, we really focus on a few specific areas where we have great differentiation. And I'd like to take you through these. So one is regulatory compliance migrations, cross-protocol migration with application consonants, data extraction, and I'll give you some examples of that, and then data migration at scale. To your point, Jim, is in the end is the faster we can migrate, the better it is for the end user. But it's really about making sure that we keep that data integrity in check. So let's talk about regulatory compliance. Compliance migrations require that you have a chain of custody. It requires that you have maintained immutability and data integrity. And of course, security plays a major role in it. Um, Foundationally, everything that we do, whether it's DataForge Classic as a service or DataForge software, is based on compliance migration. So every migration, whether it is to you a compliance migration or not, it is to us, because we believe that following these methodologies ensures greater data integrity and consistency of process. So what is it that we do? We're doing a lot. So we do provide audit trails and chain of custody reports, and we make sure we have had a customer, a very large multinational bank, who had evaluated our chain of custody report and had their attorneys did actually and deemed that the report could hold up in court. So this is really important for us because if you migrate compliance data and then something happens and you have to go back and prove that, yes, the data that was stored on system A is the same as on system B, you want to be ready to show that and demonstrate that. And we make sure that you can do that. All the permissions and retentions are copied forward. So we don't start the retention from scratch. If it's a 5-year retention and you're in year 3 years, 4 months, 55, 5 days, then the retention will start at that point when you do the cutover. So oftentimes you may have storage or application encryption, and we do not require encryption or for data to be decrypted in order to migrate it. So again, maintaining security, which is really important for people who have compliant data, and also important for people who just value their data. And finally, we do calculate a hash to ensure that we are copying data bit for bit. The other area that we talked about previously, but I'd like to expand on today, is application-aware migration. This is where you might be going from across multiple cross-protocol migrations. So you might be going from SMB to REST, or REST to S3, or S3 to SMB, or an older protocol like CAS going to anything else. In these situations, you have to transform the data, not the content itself necessarily, but the data that makes it possible for the application to interact with it. This is metadata and attributes. So where you may store that in an SMB storage for an application is going to be different than if they're writing to an S3. And so during the migration, which we perform at the storage layer under the application, so it doesn't affect the application and it's not in application data path, which is one of the reasons it can be so fast and efficient, is we transform all of that data. We package the data in such a way that when we do the cutover and the application goes to the target, it looks as though it was what it's written. So here's some things. It's necessary to do the transformation, and we support any-to-any protocol transformation for a given application. We support a series of applications. I think in the demo, Massimo showed you NICE is one of the applications, commercial applications we support, but we have a list of those available today kind of out of the box. But we also can develop what we call application connectors that enable us to support a custom application as long as we have access to the storage.
What is NICE?
NICE is an application, it's a recording application commonly used in financial institutions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, petabytes of it out there. So we can develop these connectors. We can also develop connectors for new commercial applications. And that would be as a engineering kind of custom development engagement. And then, as I said already, once the data is migrated using these application connectors, when the application goes to the target, it looks and feels to it as though it itself wrote the data. So we really make sure to emulate exactly how the application writes it. And that's kind of the secret sauce there. I mentioned data extraction. So I'm going to use a case study. In other words, an example of a data extraction we did last year for a customer. This is an example of where somebody may have an application, it might be a custom or a commercial application, legacy application that has data. You'd like to either access the data for, let's say, analytic purposes, and it's trapped. Maybe you no longer want to use this application. You have a different application or a different way of doing things. And you need to, what we call, extract the data. So in this scenario, the customer, and this was the requirement, they also needed to get this data migrated to the cloud in this scenario within 5 months because the data center was closing. So one of the things about it is they set up an environment using, I think it was Elasticsearch and a NoSQL database to store the information about the data and the location of the data. They had a very simple interface they designed, and we were able to extract the data from the application and just migrate it into the cloud, into an S3 bucket, set a retention on it, and be able to do it. So we were able to copy, from a performance perspective, 176 million files within 14 days. We made it. It was running at 22 terabytes a day, which is pretty quickly. We were able to complete the migration in 1/3 of the time. I think the original estimate was a lot longer than it actually took. The total process was 6 weeks. Their alternative to move it to the cloud was actually using the legacy application to do that. And they themselves said that the estimate for that would have been closer to 13 years. And that's no joke. Like I said, we extracted the data, we moved it into an S3 cloud bucket. We set the retention. They wanted it for 10 years. And the result of that is they themselves did this financial analysis where by extracting the data from that given application and using Interlock to migrate the data, they were able to reduce their overall cost over the 10 years that the data would be retained by 86%. So most of that was, of course, the lower cost of storage, not having to pay for the application in the cloud. But a big component of it was our ability to extract it and to move it to the cloud, because without that, they wouldn't be able to realize the benefit of that system.
So, Noemi, I have a question because some of what you've been showing, you have a true differentiator here, but with all these, complex activities, those specific migration, data extractions, and so on. But for your customers, those who want to use it more as a kind of a self-service way, or use it as kind of software as a service, what is the kind of the differentiation that they can expect from your competitors?
So the key differentiation from the DATAFORGE, so we have two, like I said, we have two services. The fully managed service, obviously you get the fully managed and you get the ability to develop different connectors for applications. You have the know-how and the knowledge that we can leverage to any kind of situation. So I can expound in this, for a very long period of time, and lots of different examples for which we don't have time, unfortunately. But of course, if you call us, I'll tell you about them. But we have lots of experience, 15 years of walking into a variety of environments. So we have that. On the other side is we have DataForge software, and as Massimo had demonstrated and showed you, it's really designed for that self-service, right? Everything is automated, whether it is an active file system or an active environment where data might be changing during the migration, or if it's a static system in which nothing is changing, you're just copying it over. And by the way, when I talk about migration and copy, we migrate, the process of migrating the data is moving your access to data from one system to the other. The actual process of migration is copying data, not kind of cut and paste. I'm not going to delete it from here and move it over here. The reason you want to copy it is because anything can happen, and you definitely want to have, sort of the master copy ready to revert to. But what we do is we copy the data over, we transform it, we enable you to cut over, and then whatever was the source, it is up to the end user to either destroy it, to use it in some other way, or do whatever they want. And in some cases, maybe, and this is part of the extraction conversation, is maybe they don't want to get rid of it altogether. Maybe they don't want to migrate it, but maybe they want to extract it from the application to use for analytics or AI or something else that they might be, good for the data in other ways. But the DataForge software automates all the processes. It automates the phases. It automates, I'm going to do my assessment. I'm going to gather all the information. Then I'm going to initiate my jobs. I'm going to help optimize sort of how many threads I have. I'm going to set a schedule to help me optimize how it interfaces with my environment to have, very little effect on production. I'm going to take you step by step. I'm going to provide you all the information you need as to what is happening during the migration. That's really, and we can do it at scale, right? So one is at scale, one, it's always compliance, as I mentioned before, and really working step in step, understanding what needs to happen in order for this to be a successful process that doesn't take too long. Let me give you a couple of more examples, because I know we're going to get to the end. So most of the migrations that we deal with and that can and should be using migration tools and solutions is when you get to a decent scale. So if you have 2 terabytes, 20 terabytes, there are lots of different tools that can move the data. But when you get to scale, there's a lot of variables involved in the data migration process. Like I mentioned before, scheduling it for production, how long is it going to take, optimizing the throughput, making sure that you deal with whether it's permissions, retentions, data integrity, all of these things. So you want to automate as much as possible, and that's kind of what we, but it is what we do, right? We migrate data at the storage layer. We optimize the throughput so that you don't have to run 2 systems at the same time for longer than necessary, right? We try to ensure that it's limited to no impact on production. We ensure that the data is bit for bit as what it was on the sources and the target. We provide the compliance built in, we provide the reporting, the notifications to ensure that you can address anything that happens during the migration in a timely manner. We want this migration to go as fast as possible because nobody is there to enjoy a migration, right? Migration is a necessary evil, not something that you kind of go, ooh, I'm going to do a data migration here. So our goal is to get you to the lowest possible total cost of ownership as possible.
Second, so are you actively doing anything or partnering with any other companies to help with reducing the quote unquote other costs of like cloud to cloud migrations, such as like egress, data transfer, API fees, et cetera?
So we don't do anything with egress. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullet. And trust me, I've looked lots of different ways to see if you can somehow circumvent the system, but unfortunately, it's pretty ironclad. So in that regard, no. But if you think about where we talk about, our architecture for DataForge is both scale out and scale up, is that you can size it based on whatever you have. You have multi-node source, multi-node target, you have single node source, multi-node target, whatever it is and whatever the network is, we're going to set up our system to optimize throughput based on available resources, right? So, which is going to expedite it to the extent that it's possible. So that's where we can really, and because we run in virtual machines, we don't require any proprietary hardware. We try to have as little impact as possible with the greatest result possible. Okay. So this is, again, we align the transfer with the activities, application activities. So maybe we throttle back during active hours. We take advantage of everything that's available on the network bandwidth and system resources during downtime or slower periods. These are just some of the things that we do. And then, of course, all the transformation that we talk about when necessary is done in flight. So again, optimizing the time, optimizing the process.
Do you automate how you throttle things at all, or is this part of the manual process?
No, it is automated. There's a schedule. So if you know approximately, the working hours are, 8 to 5, you can set those kind of parameters. But there's also some sort of automated ways that we can throttle.
Is any of it API driven?
Not today. This is just an example I wanted to show you again of the performance. This is again a customer of ours. They had a very short time in which to move data, and with it was a compliance cross-protocol migration. It was a multi-node system, and we were able to move 3 billion small files, 220 terabytes, so an average size of about 75K in 30 days. So the configuration was a scale-out configuration. We had 8 data mover nodes over a 1 gig network. Like I said, we copied about 3 billion files in 30 days. We maintain application consonants at target. So it was a cross-protocol to S3, provided a chain of custody report. So all of that was done very, very quickly and efficiently. Again, one of the reasons we're able to do that is because for a cross-protocol migration with an application, we do the migration at the storage layer, not at the application layer. So right from under the application, the data goes. So we come to the end, just to kind of highlight what we've talked about, we make migration a consistent process. So we have a methodology that we follow step by step every time we do the migration that starts with an assessment, creating jobs, migrating the data, making sure that everything has been captured, and then the cutover, which is redirecting the end users in the application to the target system. We preserve all the permissions and copy forward retention where applicable. Our engine is both scale up and scale out to accommodate whatever the infrastructure that we're walking into. So any limitations, whether it's a source limitation in terms of resources, network limitation, target limitation, maybe it is migration over WAN. We have a way to address that. We provide both cross-protocol and like-to-like migrations, and we provide them both as a fully managed service in our DataForge Classic, as well as a self-service software, which we call DataForge. Our goal is to do the migrations with minimal operational disruption to the user community, which is why, again, storage-to-storage migrations. And again, the design and the purpose is to reduce the overall cost and pain of having to do data migrations in any environment. Most of the focus is on the larger environments, but it can be, even a 70 terabyte, tiered file system can cause some grief if not handled properly. So I want to thank everyone who has come to listen to us present and view the demo. I would love to hear from folks with any questions or and feedback, as well as if you have a migration you're thinking about. It is important to plan for it. We have the experience and the knowledge to help identify areas that you should look into before whether you use us as a migration technology or not. We're here to help. Really want to make sure that people understand that there are places and there are times you really should be using a data migration solution.